Hi there, I'm Mike37 and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a weapon for Dragon Age using 3ds Max and Eshme's tools. Okay, first thing to do is to make your model and texture. If you don't know how to do this, then there are plenty of YouTube tutorials you can have a look at. I'm not going to go over this because I'm going to just assume you know how to do this. Okay, so let's set up our material. Now, to begin with, you probably have set up your material using standard or some other thing. If you've got Eshme's tools installed, you can pick a different material type. So I'm going to make a new material. Instead of having standard, I'm going to click on that and go into Dragon Age material, which will bring up a whole new set of parameters. So material type, I'm going to be using weapon, which will bring up a certain number of texture maps. Now, let's use the diffuse map, bitmap, and I'm going to be using this diffuse map here. And I'm going to be using, go up again, and a normal map, bitmap, this normal map here. Now I'll just show you what those look like in Photoshop. Okay, so this is my diffuse map. Nothing particularly interesting. It's in the DDS format, which if you've got the plugin for Photoshop, you can save that. I recommend using DXT5 for pretty much everything, because you've got the alpha information there if you need it. But if you wanted to save some space, you can use DXT1, and that doesn't have an alpha, or at least it's not. It's only got 0 and 1 for the alpha. It's not grayscale. For the normal maps now, quite a lot of normal maps will look something like this, which is not the format that Dragon Age recognizes. You need to, when you've got a blue texture like this, you need to use File, Save As, and instead of picking DXT5 for your DDS output, choose DXT5_NM, which will save it into a grayscale format that looks like this. All it has is the X and the Y information. It doesn't have height information. So Y is on the RGB channels, and X is on the alpha there. Okay, so you've got those, and that's pretty much all there is to set up with the material, so let's close that out now. There are a lot of things we need to do to get this working in Dragon Age, though, before we're ready to export it. So the first thing I'm going to do for getting it ready for that is to actually look at an existing Dragon Age model, and I'm going to look at a mace, because that's pretty similar to what I want to use. But to do that, I need to extract them from the earths. So open up your toolset, and you want to go to your local disk program files, Dragon Age, packages, core, data, and open up model hierarchies.earth and model mesh data.earth in the Dragon Age toolset, which will allow you to browse the contents of these earths, which are a little bit like zips, and extract the things from them. So I'm looking for a weapon, so I know it's W underscore, and I'm interested in weapon mace 1. So I'll extract that resource to DA models, and I'll also do the same for the model hierarchies. There'll be a couple more in here because this has the MMH as well as the as well as the PH1. So there we go, weapon mace 1A extract, and we'll pop that in there too. Now back into 3ds Max, if you've got Eshme's tools set up, like I have, then you should be able to go into the importer, and you want to browse for the one you're interested in, which is one I've done other ones as well. Click open, and if you've got the MMH and the MSH, then you should be able to just click import. That's just telling me it's a different scale. Now I haven't got the material, so it's asking me, do you want to browse for it? And no, that's fine. I'm not interested in looking at the material, so just the model is what I'm interested in. Okay, so I'm going to move this over so we can see it side by side. Now the first thing obviously is the size, so I need to fix the size of my model. So let's do that. I'll scale it up somewhere about there. The other thing is it's not below the plane. Now that affects where the character holds it, so we'll be putting it about the same place in the plane. One thing to watch out for is the size of your grip. It should pretty much match your reference, otherwise it'll either be too skinny and there'll be a hole where the character's fingers are trying to hold onto it, or it'll be too big and it'll clip through their fingers, which won't look good. So try and match your reference with that. And the other thing you have to watch out for is which way it's facing. Now for a mace, unfortunately you can't actually tell which way it's facing, but I can tell you this: if you go to the back view, then you need your weapon to be looking straight at you. So I'm going to rotate this now 90 degrees. and that should be, yeah, it's now facing me, which is the way it should look. Otherwise he'll be using the side of the Warhammer, which we don't want. Okay, so we've got them looking about the right size and shape, and it's facing the right way and all the rest of it. So we now need to look at these other things that are going on. So we've got here at the bottom a game object and GOB, which is like the model root. So everything needs to link to that. We've also got here a collision. So if I just hide everything else, it's just a sphere there, and also a weapon trail, which is used to show the sort of swoosh effect when the weapon is swung in the game. Okay, so we can make all of those for our object now. First thing I'm going to do is the model root, which can be found if you go into Create tab under Helpers and bring the drop down to Dragon Age. You've got model root and weapon trail, so we'll do the model root now. Doesn't really matter what size that is, and that's really all you need to do with it for now. We'll link stuff to it in a second. The weapon trail we need to make that to just one side, get it about the right height, and then we'll just position it using right click here to center it, and then pull it up. Let's look in my other views to make sure it's about right. So actually probably easier in this one. Here we go. So we want it to be a little lower down, something like that, maybe a little taller, which we can change in the length here. Something like that, just so that it's in the main bulk of the weapon. You don't want it to be the full length of the weapon unless it's a blade or something. Just sort of emphasises the weights in the top of the weapon here. The collision. What should we use for collision? Now, if you look at various other Dragon Age weapons, their collision is not like ever outside of the weapon itself. And honestly, I'm not really sure what it's for, but I guess you'll just have to take my word for it as to how it's shaped. I'm going to be using an extended primitive capsule for this, and I'll position it here and drag it up. Okay, so just rotate it now. Whoops, wrong one. There. Oh. And position it into place, and we're just going to be pushing it through the shaft, not the shaft, the head of the weapon. So it's the wrong size at the minute. Let's reduce that down there and make it a bunch thinner too, because we don't need it to be fat. Like I say, I'm not really sure what this is even used for, so you know, I guess I'm a poor person to listen to about where to position it, but this is just from my experience. This is kind of how they're positioned in Dragon Age weapons. Okay, and finally the point crust, which you probably can't see very easily right now. It's there if I pick it from the scene, which is in this one. It's the crossed hook there, and that's where the VFX emanates from. So for mine, I'll just be putting a single one in. To do that, you just make a helper standard and make a point, and stick it in the middle of your scene, your object. So placing it at 0, 0, and then getting the height right, so it's somewhere about there, I think. Yeah, that'll do. Doesn't have to be too exact. And that's about it for making the objects. We now need to attach them to the game object and give them parameters using Eshme's stuff. So select all of the objects except for the GOB, and using select and link, just drag and link them all to the game object here. And with that selected, we go to Model Manager, which I'll just bring over for you here. And we want to give these new parameters. Now, Weapon Trail's already got one there. Capsule here, we want to make it a collision, so we'll just select collision under the parameters and add it, and then OK. We make the point a node, add that, and the weapon mesh itself mesh. I should probably give these more useful names. If I change this point, I'll change the point's name to crust hook, and I'll change the capsule's name to collision, just so you know what I'm talking about here. Okay, good. We don't need to change any of the parameters for the game object, so that's fine as it is. We do, however, need to change. I'll name this because I've got 2 game objects in the scene. I'm going to name this one Warhammer. Make it a little easier to browse through it. So the crust hook, I'll go to this one, and there are a couple of things we need to change in here and the parameters. I'll just make this a little bigger. Under the Dragon Age node bit, we need to unfreeze. We want the crust node set up to be active. So yes, we do want it to be a crust. We want to use crust hook ID 1, which is the default one, and OK that, and then freeze it again. That's done there. That's that for the crust hook. Let's go to the collision. We want, under the Dragon Age collision, we want to set that's already kinematic. That's what we want. It's non-walkable, and we want to change the collision mask to be item. And that's that. And finally, the weapon trail, that doesn't do anything. Oh, the weapon mesh does. So this now has, just get rid of these, some new tick boxes. We want it to cast and receive all types of light and shadow. So tick those first 4, and we don't want to tick either of the last 2. Those are your parameters set up, basically. Just make sure that if you've changed the size of it, you reset your Xform again and collapse that down. You also need to have an unwrap modifier. That's just how the exporter uses your model, so that it makes the texture unwrap properly. So make sure you've got that. Just needs to be there. Also make sure you have actually assigned your material. I did an export and I'd forgotten to actually assign it. Your material should have a useful name as well. So let's use that as my material name. Just because that's what I've got for everything else, and assign that to your model. Have a look there using that. Okay, so to export it, DAO Tools, Model Export. Make sure you have the right gob selected. So I'm going to pick Warhammer because that's the one I made. The other one is the mace. So now we'll only export the Warhammer itself. Give it a useful name. Again, I'm making everything the same name, just keeps everything consistent. And tick the create MAO material files. That'll just make sure that it makes the material object for you. And hit export. Okay, now that's done, you should have the following files. Should be 5 of them in there. At the minute we haven't got the textures, so it's not a bad idea to put the textures in with your files. So here we are, I've got the textures in too, and those are the only files that you need. Should be 7 or 8, depending on whether you've got. I haven't got a specular here. I should have done a specular. I didn't get around to it. But that's about it.